Thank you. Thank you. Oh, all right. And no need to wait to the end, right? Just get it over with. All right. Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, I see some people I recognize from just last night. So that tells me one of two things. Either it was so good they couldn't get enough of it and wanted to come back, or it was so bad they did not understand it at all and they need to hear it again. So, oh, thank you. All right. Whew. Glad. Yeah, you know, I was fortunate enough to have a number of experiences. I have been on a couple of different radio talk shows talking about real estate. I've always been told ever since I was young that I had a face for radio. You know, hey, all right. Hey, you got popcorn here. I figured we got to entertain you, right? There'll be no intermission, though. All right, I will tell you that. So what's not up here, though, is public speaker. All right, even though I've spoke a lot publicly, what makes you a professional speaker? I'm not a professional speaker yet. So what makes you a professional at anything? You get paid for it, right? So even though I've done a lot of speaking, I've never got paid for it. So I was excited about this when I saw that it was $10 to attend. And I'm like, does that get, I'm a public speaker. And then I started, wait a minute, but I'm not getting any of that $10. So I'm still not a public speaker, a professional speaker, right? But I turned things around, and Bruce doesn't even know this yet. So to become a professional speaker, I didn't register to attend. So I really kind of make $10 by presenting because I didn't register, right? Freebie. All right, so now I'm going to put up there, you know, professional speaker because of the $10 savings that I had for the registration. What's that? Yeah. Okay, so just various things. You know, I was a real estate investor before I found out about Renatus. Had done some real estate deals. When I found out about Renatus, I was already doing debt reduction strategies and working with companies that help people do that. Right away, I thought this is a perfect fit. In fact, I remember Bob Tierney probably doesn't even remember the conversation, but early on I approached him and I said, are you guys doing debt reduction? Are you already working with this other company? Because I'm probably too late to the show. You guys are probably already working together. And he hadn't even heard of the other company. He's like, no. And I presented a couple times early on, like in 2008, debt reduction strategies into small groups at Renatus, but it never really took flame or whatever. But fortunately, a couple years ago, Santos Kidd brought it to Renatus, and now it's part of our curriculum. So a lot of the information that I'm going to cover is between two of the classes. One's in the what's called the Essentials course, and the other one's in the AIT, which is the Advanced Investor Training course. So I know my audience. Now that you know me, let me know my audience. So I know my audience. Raise your hand if you're already a part of Renatus, just so I can get a feel. Okay? All right, great. And if you're not a part of Renatus, there's a couple sprinkled in there. Okay? All right, good. How many people have heard me speak before? Okay. How many have heard me speak on this particular topic? I'm just trying to gear how many jokes I can recycle and how many how many new stuff I got to come up with on the fly here. Okay. All right, well, that's good. I'm glad to know that. Just like any instructor, when they start, you know, you have to go out and you have to give the disclaimer, right? So I thought I'd prepare a disclaimer for you guys and see. So go ahead, take your time, read it. Oh, it's like, you know, on TV, like when they're, you know, for back pain, take this. Oh, side effects could be heart attack, convulsions, whatever it is. All of a sudden your back feels better already. It's like, wow, I don't want all those symptoms, so I think my back is pretty good now, you know. But seriously, there is a disclaimer that all of the instructors go through. I kind of lifted this from Renatus, put my companies in there. I have a couple of companies, onlineowners.com, Crusade Financial. Those two of my companies, and I included my name just so nobody's suing me personally. All right, and basically what the disclaimers, and you'll see it in Renatus all the time, is that, you know, you always got to do your due diligence. You have to get competent legal advice. You should hire good accountants. This is for educational purposes only. We don't want to give somebody, you know, all this information. They take one nugget and they take it and they run with it and they just, you know, do it to at the risk of everything. Okay, so I'm going to go and I'm going to caution you some things. What are the risk factors? What you should be looking for. But anyway, I thought maybe you could read that one a little bit better. Okay, all right. And as far as the disclaimer goes, this is something to understand, okay? It's important to understand that in order to use debt reduction strategies, you have to make more than what you spend, all right? Let me say that again. You have to make more than what you spend, all right? It's math, it's not a miracle, all right? If you're not making more than what you are spending, there's some maybe adjustments in your lifestyle, some prayer that needs to be done. You need to correct that situation, okay? So this is not, a miracle. This is having some discretionary money and then allocating that property and also leveraging other people's money. A lot of people, when they first hear about it, and if you explain this to somebody or just broach the subject, they're going to say, oh, I just put in I put an extra $20 or another extra $100, $150. This is just paying more principal. Well, that's part of it, but that's using your money to pay down the debt. I want to show you how you can use other people's money, other creditors to pay down your debt and how it works, okay? So you're leveraging other people's money to pay down your debt, okay? So debt reduction strategies, first of all, what it's not refinancing. It's not changing your lender. You don't have to do that. You don't have to get a loan modification. And it's not magic, but it is math, motivation, and discipline. And the other two factors, not only the math, but the motivation and discipline is very important. I'm going to speak later on about how that comes into play and how important that is, okay? Give me an example of the motivation and the discipline and how important that is. As I say it, it's simple, but it's not easy. I don't know how many's read my new book. And you can't read that very well. It says Randy Pertler's Weight Loss Made Easy. My new book about motivation and discipline. All right, here it is. You want to know the key to losing weight? Are you ready for this? Write this down. Here's the key. Exercise more and eat less. The end. All right, that's my entire book right there. Okay? But doesn't that show you that some things can be simple but not easy? Losing weight is simple, but it's not easy, because that's all you got to do. You got to exercise more and you got to eat less, okay? It's very, very simple, but it's not easy. There's motivation, there's focus, there's discipline, and that's the same thing with debt reduction. It's the same way. We're going to give you the tools, we can give you the best strategies out there, but it still involves on your end the discipline and motivation and focus, okay? Here's the problem. That whether you're an investor or a homeowner, how many people currently have investment properties or in the middle of an investment deal right now? Okay. All right, about half or so, okay. Debt reduction strategies applies to everybody though. If you're a homeowner, if you have a student loan, if you have credit card debt, if you have car loans, anybody can benefit from these. And it's not for the wealthy, it can be for anybody. You just have to have more money that you're making than what you're spending, okay? Albert Einstein once said this about compound interest. Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands earns it, and he who doesn't pays it, okay? So that's very important because it's a very similar situation with amortized interest as well. Those who understand it make it. Those who don't pay it, okay? I'm going to do a quick little, let's see if the internet, my connection is still good here. I have a little video I want to share with you here.
You know that millions of Americans are overpaying their mortgages, and not by a little, by tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's right, and it's all in interest payments. The fact is, most Americans could be living the lives they always dreamed of if they weren't spending the majority of their adult lives paying for the lives.
Oh, you know what? Here, I got to apologize. It's not.
We're going to show you how.
That's weird. It's playing on here, and it's not playing on there. It's just the one picture. Okay, all right, I got it. You guys are like, oh, that's good. To me, that's an audio, Randy. That's not a video. Video is when you actually see something happening. All right, I got you. All right, bear with me here. All right. All right, I think I got the situation in hand here. Let me see why that didn't. I got to eliminate that PowerPoint. right, there we go. Now I think you're going to be able to actually see it. I apologize for I don't know if you could hear it okay in the back, but I think, Bruce, did you guys say you had speakers? We talked about it, but we never plugged them in. Oh, you got one? Let's see if we can do this real quick. It's only about 4 minutes, but I think on my side. I usually don't. I think it might be right here or right. Okay, got it. Ooh, sounds like it's going to work. Okay. All right, let's see. All right, you can see that, right? Now we'll see if you can hear it. Okay, now you can't hear it, you can see it. Yeah, I don't know about this. It's on, but it's not on, if you know what I mean. That's the only. That's right. I'll play it loud as we have it here.
Millions of Americans are overpaying their mortgages, and not by a little, by tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's right.
All right, where's the candid camera? All right, I know what this is. Oh, man. Oh, that's funny. Now how the heck did Oh, that's a good one. Now this might challenge me even more here. How come that? All right. All right. Now, why isn't it showing on the screen here? All right, now let's see. Now watch when I play the video, it'll stop, or play the audio, it'll stop. All right, hang on just a second. You guys are saying this video better be good, right? All right, let's go.
If they weren't spending the majority of their adult lives paying for the lives their lenders have created. In this video, we're going to show you how overpaying your mortgage is robbing you of the future you could have, and what you can do to stop paying for somebody else's dream and start turning your financial dreams into reality. So let's get started. Meet Mike and Mary Adams. The Adams own their own home, and they're in a pretty typical mortgage situation for millions of homeowners across the U.S. Your individual mortgage details may differ from this example, but the financial principles remain the same. Mike and Mary have a 30-year mortgage for $200,000 at a 4.5% interest rate and a monthly payment of just over $1,000 per month. Mike feels they were pretty lucky to get a 4.5% rate. I mean, that's a great deal, isn't it? Well, to answer that, let's take a closer look at that 4.5% interest rate. Each of the Adams paying every month is interest, and how much is going toward principal? By the end of the first year, they've paid their lender more than $12,000. Of that, nearly $9,000 went toward interest. That means that over 73% of the money Mike and Mary paid their lender in year one went toward nothing but interest. And in year two, it doesn't look much better. Once again, Mike and Mary paid their lender over $12,000, and of that, more than $8,700 went toward paying interest. That means that in year two, over 72% of the Adams money went toward nothing but interest. Now, let's fast forward to year 20. By year 20, Mike and Mary have paid over $243,000, but they still owe their lender over $97,000 in principal on their loan. That means that after paying all that money, the Adams still owe almost half the original amount they borrowed. And by year 30, the amount Mike and Mary have paid their lender totals almost $365,000, of which nearly $165,000 went toward paying nothing but interest. That means...
Okay, depressing, isn't it? So like, I waited for that video, and now that depresses me, right? So but that gives you an idea. I wanted you to see some of the numbers there, and I'm going to use some of those same numbers in my presentation so you can kind of see how they correlate to that exact video. First of all, I'm not one to bash the banks. I mean, think about it. We're in a bank building right now, right? So we're not here to bash the banks and, oh, they're bad people, bank's bad, right? We're not like, let's get it, let's do it for Johnny, you know, let's get the bank, you know. We're not, hey, if it wasn't for amortized interest in a lot of those products, we'd never have a home, right? We'd never be able to save up $300,000 to get a home that we want, right? So it's not about that. What it's more about is just utilizing and understanding and using the tools so that you can not be overpaying for more than what you really have to pay with the resources that you do have, okay? Okay, so, by the way, what was that? Let's do it for Johnny. What was that from? What movie? Come on, you're at popcorn. You're like at the movies right now. The Outsiders. The Outsiders, okay? I think that was Matt Dillon that said that. Let's do it for Johnny. Let's get him. All right. So, all right. So the problem we just talked about, and this is using the different numbers here, but if you had a $300,000 loan at 6% for 30 years, you're paying almost $350,000 in interest. You're paying for that house twice. You're paying for two houses, but you only get to keep one of them, all right? You're paying for the house twice. And the way that Santos in our training at Renatus kind of explains it, and it's a ballpark figure. If you do this, if you take the interest rate, double it and add a 0, that's about the percent of total interest that you'd pay over the lifetime of a 30-year loan. So what does that mean? So if we take 6%, we double it, it's what? We add a 0, it's 120. That's about 120% of the original loan. Now, it's not exactly, but it's pretty close. If you want to know how much interest am I going to pay in a 30-year amortized loan based on the interest rate, let's do that exercise again. What about 4.5%? How much are you going to need? 90, right? Because you double it as 9, you add a 0, it's 90%, okay? In an amortized loan, for 30 years, depends on the interest rate, but about 5 or 6%. What year out of the 30 years are you about halfway paid off? Okay? Cross term, too smart. 20, yes. 20, 21 years, depending on the interest rate. Think about that. You're paying on that mortgage for 20 years before you just get to the halfway point. You know, you're 2/3 done paying them, and you've only got a half of it paid off. All right? So this is an amortization schedule. I pulled this off the internet. You can get them, you know, Bob's a big user of an app on his phone to get amortization. I use a very simple website called mortgage-x.com. It's one I just originally started doing years ago. I use it, just cut and paste that. So this is showing the amortization schedule on a 30-year loan. As you can see, after you make that first payment, your principal for the next payment goes up a whole $1.49. All right, you know, we're making ground now. You know, we're getting more principal paid down next month. $1.49. Okay, even if you go here on this graph, I have it for 2 years. After 2 years, it has jumped up a whopping $36.30 after making those payments every single month. All right. And that's on time, no late payments. You're doing everything right, and that's all that the amortization schedule has jumped. There's an additional problem. How many people in the room have either bought a new house in the last 5 to 10 years or refinanced the house in the last 5 or 10 years? Okay? All right? So we're at the beginning of the amortization. This is no longer months. This is now years. So what most people do after 3 or 4 or 5 years, they refinance, thinking that they're doing themselves a favor. They're lured by we can go from 4.5% to 3.5%. You're knocking off a whole percent. The problem is, though, you're restarting the amortization schedule. And if you don't cut your years down, you're actually going to be able, and you make every payment, you're going to pay more interest refinancing than what you would have if you would have stayed with the 1% higher but further along in the amortization schedule, okay? Now, if you do refinance, the smart way to do it is you knock down those years. Forget about a 30. Ask them about a 25 if you can, or a 20 or a 15. The problem is that most people, we live to the maximum of our means, and whatever our monthly payment is, we find a way to spend the rest, right? So that's where the motivation and discipline comes, all right? So that's another problem. Now, how are we going to solve these problems? Well, another great quote from Albert Einstein. In order to solve these problems, first of all, what I'm going to talk about, you got to open your mind, because this is not going to be the way you normally think about mortgages and interest rate and so forth. So I'm asking you to open your mind to interest reduction strategy, because, as Albert Einstein stated, we can't solve our problems with the same thinking we use to create them. All right? So if your normal amortized 30-year loan got you into $300,000 of interest, the same thinking's not going to get you out of $300,000 interest. I'm going to open your mind to some concepts that you're going to be like, wait a minute, can that be right? Go home and do the math and come to your own conclusions, because that's what I did when I first saw them myself. There's different types of loans out there, and this doesn't just work with, as I said, with a mortgage. It can work with student loan, car loans, anything that's an amortized loan. That's all these types of loans right here. Those are examples. Wow, if you guys would please turn off your phone so it doesn't ring during my presentation, I would appreciate it. There goes that $10 I made. No, I'm not a professional speaker anymore. All right. Okay, and then these are lines of credit. All right, so different types of lines of credit. Personal lines of credit, credit cards are lines of credit, business lines of credit, which Bob Tierney talks a lot about building business credit. HELOCs, which are home equity lines of credit. I'll talk quite a bit about those. And then secured line of credit. By the way, I'm going to make this blanket statement right now. If you can qualify for a home equity line of credit, I believe everyone, without exception, should have a home equity line of credit if you can qualify for it. Doesn't mean that you're using it, but I'm going to show you a couple reasons. Number one, it's going to help you pay down your personal mortgage or your principal mortgage down faster, your primary mortgage. And the other thing, it's a safety valve. It's a credit card, basically, to use in case of emergency. If something devastating happened to you and your family and you couldn't make mortgage payments, guess what? In a few months, you could be, they could be filing for the foreclosure. But if you have a home equity line of credit, it's a way to survive during rough times as well. The other thing is, if you ever did you don't want to lose, leave that much equity in the home. If you have a lot of equity in your home, and again, something comes up and you can't, let's say you lose your job, now you're like, now I'm going to go get an equity line of credit. Too late. They're going to ask for your W-2s, and all of a sudden, in your last 2 months' paychecks and pay stubs, now you don't have them. As Bob Tierney, speaking of Bob Tierney, always says, dig your well before you're thirsty, all right? That's the same thing with a home equity line of credit. You could have a home where, think about it, you could have a home worth, $500,000 and you got $200,000 equity in that home, and all of a sudden disaster strikes. What good is that $200,000 in your home going to do, all right? Because now you can't refinance because you don't have a job anymore, and you don't want to sell it because your family lives there. That's where they grew up. That's where their school district is at. You don't want to move out, but you're not going to have much choices unless you can tap into that equity. Equity line of credit is the best way to do that. Okay. The differences between credit lines and amortized loans. Amortized loans are one-way streets. You pay that money to that loan, it's no coming back, all right? It's one way, all right? That's why planning, discipline, strategies are important. Lines of credits are two-way streets. You can